So it looks like we have a quorum. That's great. And let's take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. Did you guys have a chance to look at those? Any changes, corrections, additions?
Looks pretty good. I move to accept them.
Okay. Is there a
All in
second?
Favor?
A second?
Mimi, oh, is there a second? A second.
Okay.
Okay,
Janet?
Mary Beth,
Aye.
Merrill? Yes.
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Bob? Karen? You're muted. Lloyd? Lloyd, you're muted.
Yes.
Lloyd, you're muted.
Janet,
Yeah.
Bob Andrews is on, but I don't know if Lloyd is on.
Isn't that his phone?
I don't know.
Don't
Doesn't
know.
say. There's no name on it. It just says a number. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's usually the case, and it's usually him.
Okay.
And Bob, you're muted.
It-
Lloyd,
This is Linda.
Yes,
It's probably
yes.
Linda.
okay.
It's probably Linda Escobedo because I'm joining you.
Oh, okay, great.
Linda, okay. Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I voted aye on
Aye,
that.
okay.
Okay. Well, looks like things passed. Thank you. All right, old business.
So Lloyd is not with us.
Nope.
No,
Okay.
I haven't heard from him today. Usually he lets me know if he's got a conflict. Okay, so concerns about the railroad crossing. I emailed Megan. I haven't heard anything back from her. I mean, the MBTA certainly hasn't done anything on it. And, you know, this is several months on now. We talked about putting a sign up, maybe one of those sandwich board signs. And the graphic designer at Minuteman designed a nice caution sign to alert people. I sent that to Megan probably back in August, September. So I'll follow up with her. She's out at a conference today and tomorrow, but I'll follow up with her next week. At least the town should print the caution sign and put it on some sandwich boards.
Can
And
you repeat for me, Jean, who you said you were talking to?
Megan Zamuto,
Oh. How do you spell the last name?
Zamuti.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll reach out to Megan next week and find out what the town is planning to do while we wait for the MBTA to figure out if they can fix this. There is a very simple flangeway filler that they could install. Yeah, I see you shaking your head, Mary Beth. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just weird.
No, it doesn't. It's not
Totally
not-
good. You'd think they'd be worried about liability, like there's all kinds of documentation that we've begged them to do something, that people have been hurt. You know, you just think they would worry about it, but they don't.
You would think so.
I don't know, but
Well, hopefully we can at least get the signage out there and follow up. I can also follow up with Simon Cataldo because his office was reaching out to the MBTA.
yeah.
And how about Carmen Gentile?
How about who?
Carmen Gentile, he's our other state rep.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I would do both. It's true that Simon has got that part of our town, but Carmen
Right.
would interested in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I can reach out to both of them. So Junction Park planters, thank you very much to Meryl and Mary Beth who came the day that we looked at the planters.
And Karen,
Right, and Karen. But you guys came with your devices, so, you know, we could see how it could or would eventually work.
Hmm.
So it sounded like the kind of the consensus from people was to put the planters along the edges. If my memory serves correctly, that putting them staggered so people had to go around them might cause more sort of traffic buildup. And no, is that not true, Karen?
Well, I don't know that, maybe Mary Beth and has a different, Meryl have. Anyway, my takeaway was where the planters are on hold, like
Yeah.
there was no plan for them, and that the whole thing was going to be revisited at some point someday. I don't know, that's how I
yeah,
heard.
I would agree, Karen. I don't think there was any consensus. I
Yeah.
think that there were a lot of different feelings, a lot of different opinions.
Mhm.
I don't think we came to an agreement about anything. I think
Oh.
it got left all still up in the air and
Yeah.
open to future.
Yeah, I
whatever.
think the last thing I remember hearing Megan say was she needed to go back and digest all of these comments and concerns that people had, because I think that was not what was expected to come out of that meeting, that when everybody saw those planters in place, I think it changed a lot of thoughts about how effective or ineffective they would be, and that she was going to kind of regroup and come back to us at some point, or come back with some additional information or a plan or
Yeah,
another meeting or I don't know.
Yeah, and I know the Green Thumbs also expressed some concern about how reasonable it would be to try to keep in the planters.
Yeah.
Question?
Sure.
The dialogue with Megan Samuto has somewhat dragged, and I think the reason for that is because she is, as many people in town employ are currently, overloaded. You know, she was hired to do one job, she's doing another one. She's, you know, working in what used to be Marsha Rasmussen's job with land planning and land management. I think that the commission may need to be a little pushy to make sure that, you know, you retain the connection with her. Her input and her feedback are invaluable.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. And she's been quite interested in the commission. She's been
Yes.
to meetings, you know, and I think would have been here tonight, except that she's out of town at this conference for a couple of days. But you're right, you know, she's also the ADA coordinator for the town, so we definitely want to keep our connection with her. So I guess more to come on the planters as well. I'm kind of guessing not much is going to happen over the winter. You know, there's
Makes
certain have plants in them, and
Well, the idea was never to leave them out during the winter.
mhm.
Initially, that was the thinking. So I think you're right that we're not going to hear any more until the spring.
Yeah. I think that'll be when we hear something more. But I can ask Megan about that when I get in touch with her about the signage for the railroad crossing.
Jean?
Yes,
When it comes to the planters, I think it's important to remember we are not where we're not generating information related to where the planters might be or what they should be. I feel like the biggest asset that we have is our experience as users, user experts. So people who are managing or who care for or live with others with disabilities. So I think planning is where the generation point is.
mhm,
And then as a commission on disability, we're reacting to and offering observations and our own opinions about whatever is on the table. So I think it's amazing, Meryl and Mary Beth went out there. You went out there with your devices, and so I think if there was anything to come out of the efforts already made, even if it starts all over again, if this process starts all over again, it would be any kind of insight that our commission might have to provide regarding moving through that space, planters or no, in with those devices. So, did we learn anything about being around those objects, no matter what they end up being? Like, what did we learn? Like, is there anything to look out for? Is there something that we should be, advising Megan and the planning group about with regards to our devices? So I feel like that might be helpful.
I just, yeah. I think that, unlike the Commission on Disability, I agree with you, Jennifer, about what our role is with it. But the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, I think, is charged with making recommendations. And so, being on both committees, I had an opportunity to tell them what I thought about it. But I would encourage other people to weigh in, either, write an email to the chair, Nat Welch, to just let him know, let that Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee know what your feelings were. They did meet since then, but I was out of town and I didn't participate in the meeting, but they did ask me, they gave me an opportunity ahead of time to weigh in on what I thought. And I issued my opinions on that. But anyway, I think other people should also, because their charge is different than us. They're actually going to make recommendations because it's the rail trail. So.
mhm. How about you, Meryl? Any thoughts, comments?
I was just going to say that I thought it was instructive for them to just see us there, because I think seeing is believing. And before they go off and in one direction, I think it's helpful for them to keep us in mind. And I think it was useful.
Yeah, and there were several meetings prior to the planter placement review, I'll call it, that involved Green Thumbs members and the rail trail. Nat was there and I was there. Megan sort of chaired those meetings, and there was discussion about putting the planters in place and then people going to observe to see what traffic was like. Were they calming the traffic? Weren't they calming the traffic? Were there comments that people made, either pro or con or just in general? And but that means the planters have to be there for people to observe. Yeah, Bob.
It just seems to me that there's particular magic about planters. I mean, the general principle here is that we want something that's going to slow down the traffic and make it safer in that location. I don't know how many other options were considered, but it seems like anything, that's placed more or less the same way the planters were going to be placed. It could be a big sign. I know that there are all through the West Concord Business District, there are paintings that are quite attractive. And maybe we could have something like that with meaningful paintings that they would be placed in such a way that it would slow down traffic. And then, of course, there's always a sign that says slow.
Yeah, well, the signage isn't working.
No,
Yeah.
there's more signage in that
Too-
little space than there is
Yep.
in, the entire town. And
Too
I
much.
don't know if the signage isn't working. I guess what I feel about the whole thing is that this is like a lot of work being put into a solution to a problem that's never happened. It's a problem that people are worried about is going to happen.
Yep.
And so it's kind of, one of the recommendations I made is to just do nothing except put efforts into collecting data.
Yeah.
To wait until, the spring and wait until there is traffic and then, do a really good job of collecting data. And then we can have something to say. But right now it's just speculation. It's just like people, I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Well, you're certainly right, Mary Beth, that there hasn't been an issue to date. I think, there's concern that it certainly could happen, a bike and a pedestrian,
Yeah.
get into a collision. But you're right, so far. So
Yeah.
we've I kind of think at this point, other than sort of reaching out to Megan to ask where things stand from her perspective, there's not much to be done until spring on this. Nothing's going to go in place. And Bob, to your comment, when Marcia presented sort of her overall plan, there was also supposed to be some very brightly painted flowers and whatnot on the crosswalk that would sort of bring people's attention to, this is a different kind of space. Whether that would work or not, I don't know, but that was as well. And some different planters that also would have some trellises and, be at either end of the park. So I'm not sure where that stands either. So shall we table this issue until maybe March? April, somewhere in there?
So Jean, I have just a question. So I'm not sure why we would even table it. Why it should come off of our agenda unless we're responding to a specific request to review or a specific request for input or, our guidance from our commission as a Commission on Disability. I think if we have ideas about what it should be or what should happen, that's a planning issue. That's not a Disability Commission issue. And I have to just sort of get on my soapbox again, and I get frustrated when our commission gets dragged into arguments that are parallel to our mission, and they're not intersecting. And at this particular time, I don't know if there's an intersection until there is a proposal. So once there's a proposal and we can offer our advice, but until then, I just don't know if it makes sense to keep it even on our agenda. So
totally agree with you, Jennifer. I think that we have given as much input as we can. And when we're asked again, about another proposal, then we can, re-enter the discussion, but I don't think we need to spend our time saying that we need to go back to this. I think we can wait.
Okay,
Makes sense.
okay,
Agree.
all right. So let's leave planters behind and move on to age-friendly Concord project. Mimi, you're here with us again.
Oh, so I have a little bit of a presentation to share, to kind of help our conversation. Would it be all right for me to share that with you?
Oh, sure.
Don't know if I'm able to share my screen. I see, oh, I can.
Oh, good.
Can everybody see it?
Yep.
So just a little bit about kind of what an age-friendly community is. It's about having a livable community where people of all ages can spend time together, can go for a walk, can safely cross the street, can safely ride a bicycle, get out and about without a car, can live comfortably, can work or volunteer, and enjoy public spaces, and socialize with friends, spend time outdoors, be entertained, go shopping, buy healthy food, find the services they need, and enjoy a lifelong home. So going through that list, you can kind of see that this approach is incredibly holistic and outrageously ambitious, and is not anything that I am anticipating that this committee or I or anybody's going to be able to take on. But Concord did back in 2019 or 2018 make a commitment saying that it wanted to be an age-friendly community. And as you can see, these are kind of the array of different things that it entails. As you might recall, this was actually something that had this kind of approach or lens around public health was started by the World Health Organization. And AARP has been taking it on, and it looks at social participation, housing, open space, transportation, respect and inclusion, and it kind of overlaps, as you can see, with the work of the DEI Commission and the Disability Commission. And you can probably think of like every department in town has got a role to play. And sort of these are those same 8 segments, but it kind of on the outside ring, you can see where it talks about the built environment, the social environment, and community, and kind of recognizing there's different angles of the same. So I am kind of peeling off the piece that's under my purview because I am the economic vitality manager. And I'm looking specifically at the overlap between being an age-friendly community. And I'm recognizing that being an age-friendly community helps expand access for all kinds of people. All those things are good for everybody. I'm sort of looking as a model is what Boston has done. And they and other communities have developed comprehensive age-friendly plans. For Boston, these are some of the projects that they've been taking on, doing age-friendly benches. So putting benches throughout public parks, making sure that they're kind of evenly distributed and accessible, looking at their walking paths. And I've been sort of looking at, even though I still have my business hat on, sort of looking at how can I start influencing my colleagues. So for example, for age-friendly walks, I'm hoping to get some Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts to do a survey of walking paths around Concord to sort of see on how they fit some of the age-friendly metrics. Public restrooms. So through the the visitors center, they have a map of some of the public restrooms, but I'm hoping to kind of be able to make those more accessible and see where those are. Recognizing anybody out shopping has had a time where they the choice was stay shopping or rushing home. So there is an economic vitality part to that. Boston's looking at housing, job resources, this Civic Academy, which is about helping seniors stay more active as sort of citizens, whether that's serving on committees, volunteering for different things, taking neighborhood leadership. And then they've been doing an age-friendly business program. So as part of their age-friendly business program, they have a formal certification process, and they've been mapping the businesses that are age-friendly. What they do is they have a checklist. They go and do one-on-one assessments and technical assistance. I forget whether they're doing a small grant or not. And then they give the businesses a little decal, and they put them on this map. So their checklist is relatively straightforward. It's just a 2-page form. They have the businesses all take part in about a 1-hour training, which is an online kind of video. And then they come in and walk through the business. So you can see some of the categories. So looking at lighting, noise level, signage. So like the atmosphere of the building, communication. So looking at, their menus, different signage that they might have. How, can you actually see what the prices of things are? The walkways getting into the building. Then they have a bunch of more building and atmosphere things. So they kind of have like the higher cost ones. So for our part of why, kind of stepping back a little bit about why I'm working on encouraging the businesses to be part of this age-friendly business initiative is recognizing 20% of Concord's population is over 60%, age of 60, and that's an increasing percentage of the population. 57% of overall consumer spending is by consumers who are over 50. So, I remember anybody who's ever thought about TV advertising, they often talk about like the 20s and 30 demographic. That's the ones that we have to capture. But if you recognize seniors actually have got the true buying power. And part of why advertisers aren't often going after them is because older adults are the most loyal customers. So those advertisers can't capture them the same way. But businesses, once they have a loyal customer, that's great. But if they break that relationship, it can be really detrimental. And you can see in the next statistics, 83% of people with memory issues, and a lot of seniors start developing memory issues, often will have changed where they shop based on how the business is catered to them. So we're really and that's sort of a relatively low lift for businesses to improve their customer service on how they treat their customers. That doesn't cost them anything. Just as a little personal example, my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's, and my husband was had his mom at Home Depot, and as you can imagine, he's taken her through the store. She had to use the ladies' room. I brought her into the ladies' room, and because all the stalls were only slightly ajar and she couldn't see the toilets, she didn't recognize that was actually a bathroom. So he had to go into the bathroom and actually show her. So there was kind of a little issue of like, what's this guy doing in the ladies' room? So they had already had a bunch of adventures by the time they finally get to the checkout. And then she realized she had left her coat behind. Actually, it was my coat that she had borrowed. So he's like, I got to get her coat back. So he didn't want to drag her through the store again and asked the clerk if she would basically babysit his mom so she wouldn't wander away. And the store, it kind of makes me misty of how good they were for her. They just shut down the cash register, took care of her. And that's like, the heck with, competitors. Home Depot is my store now. So I would love that was true for every store in Concord, where they weren't say like, I'm kind of busy, that would be great. Sorry, it really did move me. The other big factor about why it would be great for businesses to be more age friendly is recognizing Concord has got, as folks probably know, a lot of visitors, not just kind of the international kind of traditional tourists, but we have a lot of day trippers, people who are coming to stay with family, folks that are coming that their grandkids are at Concord Academy that kind of come once or twice a year to see family, and they often are actually spending a lot of money. I have to double check this again on the travel and tourism, but if I recall correctly, it was 1/6 of the total consumer spending in Concord is by those visitors. So talking to some of the antique shops, they tell me they have folks that come twice a year. They always stop at the store. They always make a purchase. They don't live locally, but that like this is their go-to spot. And folks probably know, like, for businesses, 80% of your sale is by 20% of your customers. So those 20% folks are significant for them. So I'm sort of starting to flesh out this business toolkit. I did receive the funding from the metropolitan area, from the state, to work with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And at the last select board meeting, the select board approved the receipt of the grant, and we actually have the cash in hand. So I'm now starting to scope out what the scope of work with the consultant with MAPC is going to look like. And what I'm going to do is going to show you what the elements are, and then maybe we can walk through and I can get some feedback of what folks think. So the first part is developing a best practices toolkit. And there's a lot of other communities that have already done this. So I'm hoping to not reinvent the wheel, but maybe tweak it a little bit, recognizing that Concord has got some specific limitations in terms of a lot of the buildings, because they're historic or less accessible. We've got a lot of historic assets. So it'd be great to make, you know, for example, the Orchard House or the Old Manse or some of these spaces that we want to kind of embrace them as spots too. So creating a toolkit. Then business technical assistance. As I mentioned, in Boston, they've got this video, and then they do one-on-one assistance to see if like that's what we want to do here in Concord and whether that's helpful. And I've had some conversations with businesses, but I have to work that out. Then a certification process to sort of know, you know, potentially we could highlight businesses that are business friendly, and talking to some of the businesses they're interested in getting that certification as a way of touting it. We could have our own map. And I've already talked to Discover Concord, that they could do almost like a 3 days in Concord, all the things that you can do to highlight those businesses and amplify that. And that's part of that promotion for age-friendly businesses, but maybe that's something that we can do on an ongoing basis. And then community education. Like, I don't want to do this alone. I'm really excited to work with all of you as partners. I've been talking to folks from the DEI Commission, Economic Vitality. And as I said, I want to amplify this to other commissions in the town of Transportation Committee. I'm meeting with the Council on Aging. So those are kind of the rough outlines. I'll just kind of maybe slow it down now, and I'll kind of go through each one and get some feedback. And folks are welcome to kind of give me feedback about what they think about that. So for this best practices toolkit, what do folks think would be some of the most important things of, like, from, especially with your lens of the Commission for People with Disabilities, that would be important to consider, having seen that earlier toolkit? And actually, if you don't have answers to any of these, this is not the last conversation I hope that we have. I'm just, especially as I work out the scope of work with the MAPC, I want to make sure I hit the most important things. So thinking about the toolkit, do folks have any thoughts on that?
Mimi, this is Jennifer. So the toolkit is that slide that you were referring to that had like the lower cost features and the higher cost features. Is that right?
Yeah, that might be that checklist,
Yep.
but it could also be, maybe we might have some industry specific ones. So like how restaurants can be more age friendly, how retailers can be, how banks, apparently banks are already doing a lot of good things, but working with them.
Yeah.
It could be, maybe we want like resources for seniors or other people to be secret shoppers and their own checklists that they could then respond back and kind of tell me, like, go talk to this business kind of thing. Or could be, you know, a training video that's available to public. I'm not quite sure what that might be. Part of our thing is to kind of do a survey of, like, what is everybody else done?
Right. Right. It also depends on who the toolkit is for. Is the toolkit, the best practices is, like you said, if it's for businesses, how though, like what kind of business you have would really change what kind of toolkit you needed to make your business a more age-friendly one. I think best practices from our perspective have a lot to do with the physical environment, first and foremost. In that was a beautiful diagram, by the way, the one with the heart in the middle and the eight areas around it, and then the social and community and physical. It's a beautiful diagram. But I think the physical is the part that if you can't get in the door, no matter what kind of business it is, whether you're running a interior design service or whether you're running a kitchen supply store, just getting in the door is really important. So that built environment piece, I think would be part of the toolkit. You know, in a town like Concord, there are so many existing conditions that make modifications at the front door virtually impossible because of either space restrictions or historic restrictions or et cetera, et cetera. So I think part of a toolkit, if I was a business in town, part of the toolkit for me would be to say, I want to make my business more age friendly, but what are the, what if I can't modify my front door, what do I do? Like, you know, that, like having a 1, 2, 3 collection of ideas or actionable items based on that, just getting in the front door problem, I think would be really helpful. That's how I would see the age-friendly toolkit being most sort of immediately useful. That's a
Mary
beautiful
Beth,
diagram.
Mary Beth, you had your hand up?
Yeah, some thoughts I had, and also from looking at your checklist is that I think a lot of places, I think that signage and lighting is important. I think a lot of places could be more accessible. You see a lot of restaurants, you go into, I don't know, order a slice of pizza or a sandwich or something, and all they have is a sign maybe above the counter, and it's always in print that is too small. I never can read it. And they don't necessarily even have to change those signs because maybe a whole lot of other people can read it, but just have a copy of it, a paper copy that somebody can just pick up and look at instead of trying to squint and read the sign. So signage and lighting. And also, I think, and this, again, it speaks to what kind of a store. So the signage thing, I'm thinking about restaurants, but stores like a hardware store, even the signage in those stores are very important, but even somebody to just be aware that for a person who works in the store to approach the customer, say, you know, what can I help you look for? So that you don't have to wheel or walk or whatever all over the entire place to find where the light bulbs are or whatever you're looking for. So, you know, good signage in all stores, I guess, good lighting in all stores, but just the ability to approach somebody and say, can I help you find something? I think goes a long way towards making something age-friendly and disability-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And space is a whole other thing. You know?
When you say space, what do you mean?
Well, I feel, you know, I mean, I think living in Concord as a person with a disability, I feel like I can access food. I can access, you know, the necessities. I can get into the pharmacy. I can access food. Some of the things that I wish I could access that I can't, that are particularly speak to the nature of Concord, are things like the antique shops. Can't get into any of them. Some of the beautiful little specialty boutique stores, which are accessible in terms of the curb cut and the sidewalk, but you cannot move in that store even as a walking. I know walking people who say, I'm not going to go in, you know, and because everything is just so jammed together so that you can't navigate the store. You can't even begin to see, well, where are the sweaters versus the dresses versus the shoes? It's just all, so, you know, I think there's a lot of that goes on. Also some of the other kind of unique to Concord things that I think could be made a lot more age-friendly is being able to feel like I can cross the street safely to use the public library, the main library. I think it would be very important. But, you know, there, like, I think the the bare necessities are there. I can go food shop, I can get to the drugstore, I can go to the Council on Aging. Most forms of entertainment I can get to, the Umbrella, I find them all. But it's funny because the things that are most unique to Concord, I say, I don't know, can't get in there. And I run a little Airbnb out of my home. And so I often, and I put together a little book of what, attractions and things. And I rely on other people's recommendations, on my husband's, to say what should be in there, what shouldn't, because half of the places in there I've never been to because I can't. And when my guests ask me, I just say, you have to ask my husband. He knows more about that place. I can't get in there because of the stairs, or I can't get it. Yeah. So it's like, some of that's, you're not going to change buildings. You're not going to make buildings accessible that aren't, because of historic reasons. But there are other ways to make things more friendly. So
my
as you
next
go.
question is going to be how to prioritize some of the businesses, because I'm not going to be able to go to everything. And your comment, Mary Beth, just brought up, I've been taking notes. So I'm going to take Robert and then move on to the next question. So Robert, what's your thoughts?
I'm probably I'm certainly as old and a little bit older than anybody in this on this commission. I'm in my 90s. I'm me. I don't really need any special accommodations anywhere because I'm in my 90s. I might need some accommodations in some places because my hearing isn't good. But other than that, I'm fine. I'm mobile. I can walk in and out of places. I can go for a couple of miles in the woods. I think you need to look out for ageism, for an attitude that because somebody is old, because somebody looks old, that they have to be treated differently from other people. Sometimes that's the case, but a lot of times it isn't. You just want to be seen as a person.
I hear you, and I'm trying to figure out how's the right way to frame this, because I feel like there is a way which some of these age-friendly things sound like that they're disability issues, and I want to recognize, well, did this program grow out of disability access, and we're just packaging it as age-friendly to make it more politically palatable? And then it does generate this ageism. And so I agree with you, Robert. I've been challenged myself. I'm hoping to go to like the Concord Over 60 group and some of the other ones that are folks that are gathering in an active way that are older, and figure out how to frame this correctly. Some feedback I've gotten is to not call it, not to say that it's serving seniors, it's just older adults. And then, so even just a whole age-friendly name, maybe that's not the way to go, but there's a whole wealth of resources that I am aiming to. So yeah, I think it's going to be a hard adjustment to figure out what's the right way to go on that.
We like to use the word inclusive. It
Yeah.
helps because you're just talking about making resources as available to as many as possible, regardless of ability or age or gender, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So,
So go back to my next question was about if I were to prioritize businesses, the initial idea was to really look at the ones that are customer focused. So I'm not working about the workplaces for places out in Baker Ave. My sense is a lot of the healthcare spaces are probably already doing a generally good job, but maybe not. Should I, from Mary Beth's comment, it sounds a little bit like focusing on like the unique Concord businesses, that the ones that right now aren't accessible, but those might be the hardest, like some of the antique shops. I'm
Well,
trying to figure out, should I go for the easy wins, the tough ones?
I just
The-
want to read. I don't know if I'm muted.
No, you're,
No, oh, okay. When your comment about the healthcare spaces, one of the things that I think are not really accessible and a lot better job, I'd love to see a better job being done, are the places that are sort of alternative healthcare places, the acupuncturists, the chiropractors, the massage places that a lot of, I think, older people use them, just disabled people. I would like to see them be more inclusive in their access. They're often not. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Mary Beth. My brain was going in that direction as well. That it's some of those ancillary services that are not as easy to access.
What about hairdressers?
Oh.
Everybody's okay finding that it feels like the hair salons and barbershops have been inclusive. Janet?
You're
Yeah,
muted,
you're
Janet.
muted.
Sorry, my hairdresser comes to my house.
That's pretty accessible.
Well, he's salon art, he's in the second floor. I've been going to him for 30 years. So he comes here, but I'm not the only person who he goes to. But as soon as
I don't think we can assume that the hairdressers are all that accessible.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, I don't think they are. And
Oh, no.
nail salons and all of that stuff,
No.
they're not so accessible.
But I'm not the only person he goes to, and I think there are probably other people in his practice
Yeah,
also.
that's
so-
nice of him.
It's very nice. It's
Yeah.
very, very nice. Yeah, I usually look a lot better than this.
Other thing about kind of this inclusive idea, some of the age-friendly groups are now expanding it specifically to be dementia-friendly, which I see when I went to a training of that recently, which sounded, as they were talking about the practices, that ended up sounding very autism-friendly as well. I saw some overlap. Folks were talking about programs like the Purple Table, which I hadn't heard of. Are you familiar with that, Jennifer? So
Yes, Purple Table, of course. Yes. And that's a great program, actually, the Purple Table program, where you can call ahead, and a restaurant has made accommodations for a table that relieves the people using the table of the spectacle that is often comes along with taking one of your loved ones or a friend who doesn't abide by all the social norms that are typical in a restaurant. So it's a wonderful program, and it's not one that every restaurant participates in, of course, but if a restaurant does, certainly that is where a family, especially a family with an autistic person in their party, would be more likely to visit. They'll be serviced and given the space that they need to have a successful evening out. One other, so one of the other things that's a little bit like Purple Table, we participate with what's called Morning Star program, and that's at the Boston Museum of Science. And what the Museum of Science will do, Discovery Museum does something fairly similar, and where they dedicate a few hours with that are not hours that are the typical hours of operation. They're either before a typical opening time or after a typical opening time. And what it does is it reduces the number of people in the facility. And sometimes objects are moved out of the way so that there's more room, to Mary Beth's point about there not being just enough maneuverability space often in a facility or a retail establishment. And so that has, I think it was something that happened during COVID as well, where we had like special shopping hours and that sort of thing. But We found that to be really helpful. So if it just takes the pressure off of if you need more time to make decisions, or if you just need more time to browse or move around. A program like that, I think, is also really helpful.
Janet?
How do you find out about the purple table, Mary Beth? How do you know about it? How does
I
the
don't know about it. Jennifer knows about it.
I'm sorry, wrong person. Okay.
That's okay, Jenna. I know about it because I'm a part of a disability social circle.
Right.
I don't know exactly where I heard about it. It's probably another parent with a child with autism who has behaviors that are stimulating behaviors, like flapping of the arms or vocalizations that are typically not appropriate in a restaurant setting at all, or who need less noise, less input than you would typically have in a restaurant. That's where I learned about it. It's probably from another parent.
I wonder how in general people hear about it. It's just an idle question, and I'm just curious.
It's like a railroad. And it's a little bit like what Mimi was getting at too, where like a map or symbols that identify your establishment as being a part of that railroad, you know, I feel like those are the kinds of things that are important. You need to, it takes on a life of its own eventually, but you need to have all the parts to identify and to be able to kind of do the treasure hunt.
So Mimi, can I suggest that you let people kind of digest what you've shared tonight? In fact, if you want to send your slide deck to me, I can send it out to the whole membership. And then
For me.
come back next month and give us a chance to sort of think through other kinds of things that could be helpful or connect with that age-friendly program.
That would be great. And I wanted to let folks know that I'll be doing a focus group at the Concord Senior Center and kind of doing this conversation. It'll probably be kind of a little longer kind of conversation. If folks I'd love to have some more people participate, which is going to be on Thursday, December 7th at 2:00. And then the plan is to kick off with our steering committee in January, where we'll start kind of fleshing out what the year is going to look like. So if any folks are interested in kind of, I'm looking for about 5 or 6 people to be part of the steering committee. I wonder, Jennifer, whether you might be interested in working with me on it. And I try to make it not too high of a lift, but just hearing about the Morning Star overlaps with some of the other things that some of the businesses are even bringing up to me. So yes, thank you very much for letting me chat with all of you. This was really helpful. And I looking forward to our next part of our conversations.
Great, thank you, Mimi. This was really helpful, and I look forward to further conversation on it. We have a couple more things that I want to make sure we can get to tonight. The first of those being membership. So Bob Andrews, I received your email saying that you are looking to step back off of the commission just because you're so busy with so many things. And I can certainly appreciate that. We do have someone who has applied for membership on the commission, Peter Nobile. Those of you who met with the HDC back when we were talking about the library, you may remember Peter. He was chair of the HDC at the time. He is he's an architect, and he works for Bergmeyer Associates in Boston, and he is their director of sustainable design. He is a person with a disability himself. And back even when we were having those conversations with the library, he he reached out to me and said, you know, he was very interested in our commission and what we did and so forth. And then since he went off of the HDC, he reached out again and he's sent in a green card and so forth to join the commission. So I wanted to put that out there. We have somebody who is interested in joining. And I know, Bob, you were hoping it would be another person with hearing loss. I think we can, you know, make sure that we don't lose track of all of the great and important issues that you have brought to the commission.
Let me say that despite my having said that in my letter about, you know, wanting to have a continuation of somebody with a hearing issue on the commission, that I know Peter Nobley very well, because we're both members of First Parish Church, and I can't think of anybody better, really, to be on the commission. He and I have spoken about his being interested, and we've talked about, you know, having some kind of a disability group at the church. He's genuinely interested. He does have some special difficulties himself, and he's a very smart guy, and his interests are diverse. He's not just focused on one kind of disability. He would be genuinely committed to looking at the range of disabilities.
Yeah, Janet?
How do you spell his last name?
Nobile.
What is it?
Nobile.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I have to leave, Jane.
Do you have a comment or a thought about Peter?
I'm just delighted, you know, from just talking with him over the whole library issue. I thought he was very open-minded and a real advocate. I'm sure he would serve us well.
Okay. So we probably would need someone on the commission to nominate Peter for a position. Bob, it kind of sounds like you're doing that.
I would second.
Okay. Janet, do you want to take roll here?
I do. I first of all want to write, he was nominated by Bob
Yes.
and seconded by who?
Jennifer.
Okay, okay, Jennifer,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Jean,
Yes.
Merrill,
Yes.
Mary Beth,
Yes.
and Janet. Okay.
Okay, great. I'll reach out to Peter and let him know and have him come to the next meeting.
Great.
And I think the other real advantage to Peter, in addition to his with his background, Jennifer, maybe that gives a little lift to the things that are always saying, Jennifer, help us out with this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really excited to have another person who and that's why I stay on this commission, Jean. You know that we've been here from the beginning, and it's because it's really important to have your sort of one foot in that the physical environment and accessibility with regards to experience, right? The built world and how that contributes to your experience. Peter, I think, is an excellent addition, even just in the context of what Mimi was talking about, and creating a community that's more age friendly. And her statistics about the median age in Concord and aging in place is something that's on the governor's list of things to promote and to push forward. It's on our planning list of things to push forward. So I feel like having an architectural perspective, even just given those future goals out there for our town and our population, I'm thrilled. I think it's really excellent to have that perspective. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think he'll be a wonderful.
May I say something again? I sent that letter of resignation to Eugene. Have you distributed it to others on the commission?
I did not, but I would be happy to do that if you'd like, or you can send it.
Well, I certainly meant it to go to everybody.
Okay, I will send it to everyone.
Okay.
We have to vote on accepting Bob's resignation.
I don't know that we, I mean, if we all say no, what's he gonna do? He's gonna leave anyway.
Right.
Gonna hold him hostage.
Yeah,
I just,
Right.
if it's a formality, we had to, but never mind.
but.
I
but-
just want to thank you, Bob, for all that you've contributed.
Thank you.
You
Yes.
really,
I-
yeah.
That was
I
what I
did,
was wondering about. Thank you for the all of the time that you've spent here and for your approach to make sure that the commission thinks about a wide variety of disabilities, because that's really our charge. It's not just physical, architectural kinds of things. It's also all of the other nuances, whether that's signage or ability to hear what's going on and really participate. So thank you for your time here on the commission.
is it okay if I show up again next month and then, because that's what I said in my letter. I said
Yes.
I'd go through December 31.
Sure, that's fine.
Right.
And you're certainly welcome to join a meeting at any time. The meetings are open to the public.
Right.
So,
By the way, I have not stopped working on hearing loss issues in the community. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be part of a panel presentation at the Council on Aging in December. We're putting out special invitation in the senior newsletter. It's an attempt to get to some of those people. There are 80% of the people who really need hearing aids who don't use them, or who have purchased, who don't use them or never made any move to get them. And this is an attempt to encourage people to step forward and do something about their hearing loss.
That's great. That's great. The other issue is people who need hearing aids and don't use them are at much greater risk for dementia.
Yes, there was an excellent article in the Sunday Globe magazine a few weeks ago about that.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bob. We appreciate your time here. Okay, last item here. Mark Galius, you have been patiently waiting to sort of fill us in and encourage us to take part in the transportation questionnaire.
It's always a pleasure, and I always learn so much. I mean, this is the way to really learn things in the town. I appreciate all that you're doing. I want to mention two things. One thing is I sent Jean a note just highlighting, because I'm not sure how well the information gets passed around. By the way, can everybody hear me fine?
Mhm.
That the this initial survey, public survey for the comprehensive transportation and mobility study, the deadline to return the surveys or do this online survey has been extended from this Monday, November 20th till December 8th. So there's more time for people to weigh in. Please let people know. And there are paper copies you can get at the planning department at Kais Road. You can get them at both the libraries. You can get them at the townhouse. There may be some others. And there are people who can, yeah, I see one there on the iPhone. And, you know, and anybody who, you know, can't access it that way should, you know, reach out to the town, to the planning department, something, and get word out to somebody to get them a copy. There's an online survey, which has the same survey, and it also has a map where you can put pins on places, you know, whether it's, you know, any place you think there's a safety problem. So I know Mary Beth mentioned about the library, the main library crossing, you know, on the consultant that ended up being hired by the town to assist in this approximately year-long study ended up being a very large design and engineering firm called Stantec, with 26,000 employees based in Alberta, Canada. So they do, you know, oil pipelines and mines and business districts in Dubai and things like that. But they have expertise and too. But I think it's very important that the citizens weigh in and help the staff guide the consultant to provide information that's actually useful to Concord, rather than something that, you know, somehow will never, you know, looks nice, but it never really could be implemented. And the Transportation Advisory Committees went through 2 rounds of, I mean, the Volunteer Transportation Advisory Committee is following this closely, trying to help, wants the public to be able to come directly to the Transportation Advisory Committee, but we don't run the consultant's run by town staff, right? So we, it's even posted on the study website comments that individual members of the Transportation Advisory Committee put in written comments trying to make the survey better. Not all the what I thought were good ideas got implemented, but one of the things we insisted on was having open-ended questions. So I encourage people to put in, you know, not just answer the multiple choice questions, but feel free to write in lots of other ideas and things. I think that's super important. Another key thing to keep in mind is that the goal, the intended, the intention is to also have input not only from residents in Concord, but people who work in Concord, people who visit Concord, people who travel through Concord. With regard to disability, I would think besides and in addition to individuals with disabilities who face transportation challenges, it would also be good to alert the network of helpers, caretakers, caregivers, employees, things that might have trouble getting in and out of town or around town or whatever, to kind of weigh in on this. So I think that's a connection to disability care community. Another thing that kind of came up, I went out to had an in-person session to get some input from some people at the Peter Bulkeley. Had talked to about a dozen residents there for a couple hours, and there was a lot of interest in getting some kind of public transportation going in town, because the surrounding communities have shuttles. You know, Lexington has three lines, and Acton has 2 different things. Bedford has something. We don't have anything. Apparently we used to. Some people were telling me there used to be a bus in town. I know that Merrill had said once upon a time, where this really stuck in my mind, you can get into Boston, but you can't get to Maynard. And I thought that was significant. Another thing that came up, so whether or not you answer specific questions, people can weigh in on these things in the survey, and that's all going to be collected, and the raw data is going to be available to the TAC and to the staff. Another thing that came up, I'll just mention in passing, is that apparently there are limitations or insufficiencies with Council on Aging access for certain people who don't qualify, you know, for the shuttle, and by age or by whatever, and but otherwise could really use that type of service. So there's a gap, and apparently there's some issues some people expressed to me about the ride where can't be used very easily for certain things like medical appointments because they give you a 2-hour or a 4-hour window for when they're going to show up. I don't know this, but we need to gather a critical mass of information about what really are the problems, or else people won't see them, and we can't actually act on it. There's one other thing I wanted to mention, if I might. I'm a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee, so I can talk about, in a public meeting where a quorum of other TAC members might hear me. I can't talk about things that are in the charge of the Transportation Advisory Committee, so I have to be careful. I can talk about facts like this survey and things that are, have been discussed and all that. But the Transportation Advisory Committee charge kind of says focus on transportation within Concord. So it's a little bit debatable whether the NBTA service and amenities like accessibility at Thoreau Depot are in the charge or not. And I think the consensus is it's not really in the charge. So that actually means I can talk about it freely. So I feel like it's very important that we get at least a temporary accessible platform at Thoreau Depot. I think it's a major need, and for a lot of reasons. And it's not for people with disabilities or mobility challenges, but also in terms of getting support. Anyone with young children, child with a stroller, traveling with somebody who has a mobility problem, packages, etc. It's dangerous to climb up and down those stairs on the train. It also, somebody pointed out to me, speeds up the operation of the train because people can get on and off quicker as well. So there's a lot of reasons. So what I did was I put together a little bit of a story about the Fitchburg line, which has percentage-wise less accessibility than a lot of other lines, like the one that goes to Newburyport. And a lot of stations in Lincoln are not accessible or have been closed down. And anyway, so I wrote to our state senator a while back, and I put something together, some little bit of information earlier this year. And I didn't get very enthusiastic response. But more recently, I wrote to our 2 state reps, and they seem more interested. So I'm going to try to, do my part to raise this issue. And I got a response back, question: has the select board or the Transportation Advisory Committee actually made a formal request to Keolis or to MassDOT that the MBTA is part of, that we want to have an accessible platform at Thoreau Depot? And I don't know of any formal request.
Well, yeah, I can
Can you
fill you
help me?
a little bit. This goes back to when Corey Atkins was the rep.
Mhm.
Corey and one of her aides, and a couple of other legislative aides, myself, Alex Kaufman, who was on the select board at the time, met with the MBTA, and we did make a request for an accessible platform at Thoreau Street, because people are not able to access the train at that point. And at the time, the MBTA said, well, we have to make everything accessible over time, and we're working on it. And you do have an accessible train stop in Concord. Yeah, but they agreed to look into it. I think it's gone into the pile of look into, along with the gap in the rails.
Yeah, it's in the warehouse somewhere. Nobody knows under what heading. But Jean, is it possible for you to send me any information on when that request was actually made? It's not super important, but I was specifically asked if something had done. And I, so if you can do that, if not, or any other anecdotal information might be helpful. But I think that the 250th Executive Committee should be thinking about this. I think select board should be thinking about it. And the TAC, the consultant, the study that's being done is supposed to be comprehensive. So things that link to other things still should be considered. And I'm wondering also whether the Disability Commission might potentially reach out to other disability commissions along the Fitchburg line that don't have accessibility. Because there's this other thing that I tried to put in. I can send Jean copy of what I sent to our reps to distribute to people. I mean, it would be good not to send my letter around everywhere. Maybe, I don't know. Again, I think it doesn't violate open meeting law because it's not specifically TAC because it's the MBTA. It's not run by the town, etc. But for information might be useful. And what else was I going to say? That I was wondering if there was any way that the Concord's Commission on Disability could reach out to other commissions along that line and sort of see if, I mean, we could even go to the State House and stand out in front and say, why is the Fitchburg line so inaccessible? And one final thought I wanted to mention is that, well, first of all, I have to say, Jean, when you mentioned Concord has a station, if you go on the MBTA website and you say, how do you get accessible to Concord Center? They say, go to West Concord and then use your wheelchair for 3 miles or whatever it is across Route 2. And literally it tells you that. I mean, it's just insane. And what a service. Anyway, there may be something else I wanted to say that slipped my mind, but I think it's time to do something about it. I was going to just say that Concord is all, and this came up earlier about the economic vitality and all that. The MBTA, I think, has some metric whereby they say how many commuters are using it. Now, if the train service is poor, fewer people use it, that's one thing that happens. But the other thing is they're thinking about commuting in from here to Boston. But Concord is a destination, and it's going to be a big time destination during the 250th celebrations in 25 and 26. So they need to get on the ball. So that's all I want to say.
Right, and actually, there are people who use the train to commute back and forth from Concord to West Concord for work or for shopping or whatever. That's not unusual. So Mark, I will send out that transportation survey. The town did send that out this afternoon. And I'll send that on to everyone on the commission. I do urge you to fill it out. The electronic form really is pretty easy to use, and it is nice because you can just pinpoint this exact intersection is what I'm talking about. And I think it'll be useful information for the TAC and for the town. I'll dig up. Let me see. Maybe Alice Kaufman can remember the exact date.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be precise, but I was asked, have they been asked? In other words, these things take a while, but have we ever asked? And it doesn't hurt to have that.
It doesn't. I'm going to guess it was 2015 or 2016, somewhere in there. But I'll get that a little more specifically to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing, which is feel free, anybody, to come to the Transportation Advisory Committee meetings. They're usually Zoom. There's going to be one, they're usually like a Tuesday evening, but this next week, there's going to be one 10 a.m. on Monday Zoom meeting. But, there's public comment, there's interesting stuff people might learn. And either send me information if you want, or anybody or the committee. Thanks.
All right, Bob, you had your hand up.
Well, I just want to say I have taken the survey, and I think it's a good survey. surveys are not always put together terribly well, but this one I think is really a
Mhm.
somewhat superior survey.
Yes,
I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. We did,
Right.
we helped the consultant quite a bit.
good, good. Well, it shows. Thank you. Just so you know, next month, we will have Rob, whose last name I can't remember at the moment, who is the chair of the Concord 250 DEI committee, come and talk to us about the plans for Concord 250 and, and what's happening. He's very excited to connect with our commission, because we want things to be accessible, and so does he in many, many different ways. And I did reach out to the building inspector without success. So I will reach out to the building inspector again. Maybe Megan can give him a little nudge. I'm not going to invite him to December now because we will have Rob to talk about the 250th and Mimi back to talk about the age-friendly Concord. But maybe he could come in January or February and meet with us. So any last things, anybody? We're way over time. I'm sorry. Good discussions tonight. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mark, for coming and for being patient through all the rest of the meeting. Mary
Is
Beth,
me-
hand up just from a while ago, or is it up now?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's from before. I
Okay,
just forgot to lower it, I guess.
is-
Janet.
Is Mimi still on the line? Is still on the call? I think probably not.
No,
No,
I want to get a copy of her chart because it was good and I didn't get down the things that were on it.
yeah, if she, we asked her to send it. If she doesn't in a few days, I'll reach out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. So our next meeting will be back on schedule. So that is December 12th. Does that look right? My calendar is so small. Okay, so I will see you all then. And
Jean, Wednesday is the 13th.
oh, okay, thank
The
you.
12th is a Tuesday and Wednesday is the 13th.
Oh, then we actually probably are the 14th because we're usually on Thursday.
Thursday. Yep.
Okay, December 14th.
14th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you all
you.
in December. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. Take care.
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thanksgiving. Bye.
Bye.
I know.